Alex Deane, the political commentator, is back with us. Alex, good to see you again.
Ian, great to see you.
Listen, well, let's start off with that Trump story. I mean, it's such an incredible story of how this played out yesterday. It's not new territory for Trump. He loves having a bit of a dig and an expose while sitting literally next to the person that he's tearing strips off. He did it in a fairly polite, subtle way, you might say, but nonetheless, it was a telling off and it was a schooling for our Prime Minister in our country by a foreign leader.
Well, it's just how Donald Trump behaves, isn't it? And it's probably another reason you or I might not choose to have him as a dinner party guest. But I'm quite glad he's President of the United States, especially compared to the dross that the Democratic Party has been turning up for in recent years. But look, moreover, it's great that he's here and that he's positive about the United Kingdom. And by the way, for what it's worth, he treats lots of other world leaders much worse than he treated Keir Starmer.
Yes, yeah, I think
the treating he gave Zelensky.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Trump genuinely likes this country, and he likes our Sete, he likes the royal family. He's into all of that. You know, his mother's Scottish. All of the above. So I think he maybe cut Starmer a little bit of slack. He tries to throw the odd compliment in there every now and then. Oh, he's a strong negotiator and stuff like that. But broadly speaking, what he said to him yesterday was very basic common sense stuff, wasn't it? You know, you sort out immigration, you sort out energy, you sort out these kind of issues, low taxes, and you might win the election.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of the points that the president made to our prime minister. But then again, I stood as a Conservative Party candidate at the last election, and we got our asses handed to us by the Labour Party. So, you know, Keir Starmer's got a mandate to deliver on what he's trying to do. Yeah. But I think, Ian, a pattern is becoming increasingly clear. Keir Starmer, strong internationally, and I include his relationship with Donald Trump, which is a net positive, weak domestically. And the problem for him is that prime ministers in the past show us that's generally the wrong way round.
Yeah, and he seems like so many of those guys. I always have the names that always spring to mind. No longer there Justin Trudeau, still there just Emmanuel Macron, and no longer there Jacinda Ardern from down in New Zealand. Those sort of internationalists that love that. Rishi Sunak was kind of slightly cut from a similar cloth. I know you might not comment in the same way on that, but the people, but Keir Starmer absolutely loves it. You know, he seems more at home standing at a G7 or some international summit than he does sitting at home trying to work out why the hell we are paying £7 million a day to house people who shouldn't even be here.
Yeah, I mean, that's bonkers, and he's got our domestic policy pretty comprehensively wrong. I mean, and very impressive to get it so wrong so quickly in only a year. Yeah. But if you're going to make that comparison, consider the way that Donald Trump is with Ursula von der Leyen. I think far more hostile to the Eurocrats than he is to our Prime Minister, and that is to Starmer's credit.
Yeah, and I absolutely right. And I think, you know, Trump with the whole EU thing, you know, sees it as a bit of a racket, which lots of us have identified for years, of course. Yeah. And, you know, there was Mr. Trump just sort of laying it on the line to Ursula on Sunday. I mean, certainly when I first saw the clip of that, Alex, there was Trump within the frame on my TV talking about how the EU had got it so terribly wrong and migration is out of control. And then the camera pulls out. She's sitting next to him. Yeah. I thought it's another one of those great moments that only Trump can deliver.
Yeah, he's not wrong, and the EU has a real migration policy. It's very interesting. They're now looking at an alternative to, would you believe it, Rwanda, to sending illegal migrants. They're replacing borders that they said they were going to take down. They've had to reverse themselves. And after a long time of basically implying the UK was some sort of international racist holding our positions, not only are some of their member states like Hungary and Poland aggressively pursuing the same sort of position as we have in trying to deter unlawful migration, but the EU itself is too. So Donald Trump is right about it, but it looks like the EU's got a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, and it feeds into this story as well that we've been also talking about this afternoon, the life of luxury inside certain migrant hotels. Footage from inside that, well, the whole industry is about £7 million a day to keep this thing running and rising, because of course it's not stopping every day. No. This gets worse. The whistleblower Aston Knight filmed asylum seekers living in luxury at the Copthorne Hotel in Sussex. And of course this is, as I said a second ago, just down the road you've got Brits who can hardly manage the rent. This is a terrible position. It's a terrible image for Keir Starmer. My sense, however, Alex, is that nothing's going to change and we won't hear a robust response from the Prime Minister.
Well, Keir Starmer, of course, got into office, at least in part, on the promise to smash the gangs. Some more credulous people in the media said that was his policy. You know, it was great. Labour finally had a policy, and the policy was smashing the gangs. Well, if this is smashing them, I'd hate to see what a laissez-faire approach would be. I mean, the worst thing of all about this is the way that our government treats anyone who disagrees with the current policy, which is most of us, implying that we are right-wing, far-right. You know, there's something of the fascist about people who don't want this in their local community or don't want the hotel they've known all their lives as a nice place for their relatives to stay if they've got a big group coming over to house a large group of almost exclusively young men with nothing to do.
Yeah.
The knee-jerk reaction of our establishment now to claim everything is far right is crying wolf too much. And I think that's the lesson that the Prime Minister on down they've got to learn. Dismissing everyone who's got a problem with how things aren't fascist, you know, and calling them fascists is absurd.
I was talking to a couple of mates at the weekend as well, and one of them has always been very opinionated and animated on these specific issues. It's something he feels incredibly strongly about and has a... He said that he's discovering more and more people, just, you know, whether it's in the pub, on the train, at work, are engaging in this conversation that maybe previously wouldn't have done. It's now it's hitting places that it previously didn't go.
Well, it used to be that, you know, the merest whiff of the suggestion that you were a racist would shut down any sort of debate. Yeah. And we've gone past that now. They've cried wolf far too many times. They've called far too many people who are moderate and mainstream. They're not extremists. They're not in the EDL or whatever. They're perfectly normal British people who just don't think we should have effectively unfettered access to unlawful migrants or undocumented migrants from around the world. And then they pick up on things like Nigel Farage calling boats going over and taking people out of the channel a taxi service. Well, don't dismiss it, because actually that's what it looks like to a lot of people.
Yeah, spot on. And this story, talking of Nigel Farage, a curious moment today on TV when Peter Kyle, the science minister, sparked outrage by claiming that Nigel Farage is on the side of paedophiles like Jimmy Savile. This is over the online safety laws, which have sort of come out a couple of days ago and causing all sorts of problems. Many people saying that these were designed almost to stop free speech. It's not quite true, but it seems to be the manifestation of it.
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, if people are okay to vote at 16, then why are we putting them in a digital kindergarten until 18 and saying they can't go online? The poor little darlings need to be protected from the evils of the online world, but they're okay to vote. But anyway, the Peter Kyle position is a stupid one as far as I'm concerned. The government had a 3-line whip against a national inquiry into grooming gangs earlier this year. I mean, did that mean they were in favour of grooming then? You know, claiming that people who disagree with you are actively in favour of the absolute extreme, which is what, you know, you're in favour of Jimmy Savile. Doing that is meant to smear an opponent rather than engage with them or explain why they're wrong, or have to explain why they're wrong. You can just say that about them and then they get dismissed.
Sure.
That is corrosive for democracy, and it's, worst of all, from the government's perspective, it doesn't work. People see straight through it.
100%. And Theo Ushwood, the political commentator, mentioned earlier, when Boris Johnson talked about Keir Starmer representing Jimmy Savile, and Boris got into a lot of trouble over it, and Labour said that's an outrageous thing to bring Jimmy Savile into this. It's a new low for the Tories and all of this business. And here you've got a front bench minister of the Labour government doing exactly the same thing.
I hoped it had been a rush of blood to the head. I hoped he'd said it accidentally, because it's such an awful thing to say about somebody. Yeah. But that line is being repeated in their media lines today. It looks like this is a concerted attempt by the government, and it's a really bad idea.
Yeah, spot on. Listen, Alex, great to have you on again. We will speak again soon, I hope. Alex Deane, the political commentator, former Conservative candidate at the last election as well. Thank you to him.